I was moving $5 to $7 million on Mondays. The average bet is probably $10,000 a game. In 2023, I think I filed on my return. I made 14 to 15 million.
What's the most amount of money someone's owed you?
I look over my left and I had AR rifles pointed at me with about 8 or 9 agents.
What scares you the most about going to prison?
Matt Bowyer ran one of the nation's largest illegal sports betting operations, a sprawling, high-profile network with over 700 clients, including high-profile athletes and the former interpreter of Shohei Ohtani. Now, after masterminding a sophisticated gambling empire that moved hundreds of millions in wagers, Bowyer is headed to federal prison. This is the shocking rise and fall of a modern underground kingpin.
Matt, welcome to Locked In. Shout out to Hubble Studios, Vincent Hubble, for letting us use this space today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I know we've been talking about doing this for a while. Rod from Tyson team hooked us up, and I remember he texted me. He's like, "Bro, I got a great interview for you." And at the time, this was like before you had started really hitting press heavy and talking about it, and everything was kind of limbo. And I had seen like an article about the case, but it didn't get as big as like it's been the last few months. And then I left for Mr. Beast. So I missed out on that first initial wave of all of it. I probably would have been like one of your first interviews. In April.
But actually, I think you caught me at a better time because post-sentencing, I've really done very little of these podcasts that have been released. So plus your channel is great. So I'm really happy to be on it. Thank you.
And I think I have the perspective of someone that went to prison.
Yes.
Which is, I think, is a unique perspective that makes this podcast a little bit different than most of them.
Totally agree. I actually have questions for you.
Awesome. So, and the audience loves that. Before we dive into it, I want the audience to know about your book. If you want to give the elevator pitch about the book you just published.
Thank you. So I wrote the book. It's self-published. I haven't even advertised it yet. It's just social media, but I really wrote it as a way to show my children and to leave some sort of legacy of some of the poor choices I made and why I made them. And reflecting back, I wanted everyone to see that, accountability is important in life and being authentic and real. And that's really what that book is. It doesn't just shed good lights of me. There's a lot of, chaos and great times, but it really shows some of the behind the scenes and depth moments where I've lost $4 million in, a week. And I'm sitting in my sauna like a little girl wanting to cry, realizing what the hell did I just do to myself? Not even being able to pay people, but figuring it out, which is really the message that's in my book over and over again. Recalibrate. The reason I named it that is every time I met adversity, I found a way, which I'm doing now. I'm about to go to prison. 29 days from today, I'll be walking into Lompoc prison, and you've been there. I've never been there, right? So the hard part for me is, as a father of 5 kids and an amazing relationship with my wife, I've never been able to, look them in the eyes and say, hey, I'm letting you down. My job is to provide and protect. And now I can't say that, so it's a guilt that I'll go with the rest of my life. But that book really kind of shows the trials and tribulations, good times, bad times, all the above. So I think you'll enjoy it. I obviously happy to give you the copy, and anyone watching, I hope they enjoy it.
Yeah, we'll have the link in the description of this episode. And I think what's going to be really interesting to see with you, because I know this happened for me personally, is you have this perspective. You wrote this book before going into prison. Then you're going to have that time, no matter if it's 2 weeks or a year and a day or 6 months, whatever it is, to reflect.
Sure.
I know like how much reflection I just had doing the Mr. Beast video for those 3 months.
Right.
And you're going to change your outlook, and you're going to probably, if I had to guess, come out with another book based on that experience, and even redoing things from the first time that didn't make it in or whatnot, because that reflection period is huge. And very rarely do you get to talk to someone before, like who they are going through the experience, but before they go to prison, and then what it's going to look like after, which I think will be very fascinating. And maybe you do that on your own podcast channel or whatever, because there's going to be so much interest there.
That's really good perception, which is a question I asked you right before we started rolling, because you had an opportunity to do what I was doing, which is social media during your trial or while you were before you were sentenced. And everyone asked me, like, you even said it, why were you doing that? I mean, obviously it puts you at risk in front of the judge and the prosecution. I really wanted to show the world and my kids, again, like, you have a voice and you have an opportunity to at least cast your own narrative. You know what it's like when the press is making you look really bad. I mean, all the sensationalized media is never going to be, Matt Bowyer or Ian Bick is a great guy going to save kids out of a burning church, right? They're going to shed light of things that, get eyes on that, which is negative things for the most part. So I wanted to show that I'm more than what they viewers see that I'm just this predatory bookmaker who was making millions of dollars and preying on people. It's definitely not what I was doing. Every one of my customers came to me. They wanted an account. I didn't go pursue them. I'm not defending my actions. What I did was illegal. I'm paying, doing the time for my crime. But I just wanted to show the light that I'm not this evil man that, I was displayed as. Just in the few, times I've seen or talked to you, I see what kind of person you are. Someone who views you as a felon or someone who's been in prison, their first assumption is, you're a bad person, and that. But casting your own narrative and showing who you truly are is important. So my social media, which I started exactly a year ago, has grown because people have been, backing me and been inspired by the fact that I'm authentic, I'm honest, and I'm really just trying to show people that, we all have a story. Just because mine's public and on TV, that's fine, and then maybe they can learn from that, because there are so many people that don't get to be on TV or have their own story, or whether it's a alcohol problem or drug abuse or being abused by their parents or whatever has happened in their life. Everyone has some sort of trial and tribulation, and if you can learn to have the mindset to deal with that adversity, as you have, just being on the Mr. Beast and being through prison. I mean, these are all things that most people have never had to deal with. I want people to learn and be inspired by that and learn, how to get the mindset to overcome that.
I think what's really interesting with your case is that the world is definitely changing when it comes to rules with press and court and criminal cases.
Right.
Because I know my defense attorney, very first thing after the bail hearing, aside from what restrictions I had relating to social media, was don't go and talk about your case.
Right.
But it always seems so unfair, because the government is sending out 6 different press releases. Before the handcuffs are even put on me, there was articles written about me in all the local media that's getting tipped off.
Sure.
And the courts have always sided with the prosecution to, they could put out articles, but the defendants can't. And I think it was really interesting and cool to see you take your own narrative and kind of counter all of that. And we'll get to it later in your story about how they brought that up at sentencing.
Yeah.
But that's definitely a big shift in it too.
It was.
So you're paving the way for more criminal defendants to come.
Maybe they'll learn from it. I will tell you though, the messaging has to be proper, right? Obviously, not all of my messaging was perfect. My attorney was not happy at all with any of my social media, and we battled about it. She would call me up and even say, "Hey, you're really stupid for doing this." I mean, that specific word, and I appreciated the blunt honesty from her, because I'm a very honest, straightforward guy. But I defended myself. I said, "Diane, I have 5 kids, and I have to build a brand and sell my book and sell my story and get it out there." Because originally when I wrote the book, there was many reasons for it, but it wasn't really to monetize it. But now I have an opportunity to monetize it, so why wouldn't I? That being said, she didn't understand the message, and she was just trying to protect me, and I get that, and keep me out of prison. But I wanted her to understand that I have a long-term goal here, which is to come out, do something legal, and do something that I can make money at, public speaking, inspiring others, giving back, where I can, win and make money and not, just start over when I walk out of prison. So it's already being built. I think most people in this position, you've been there, don't have that opportunity. They just sit quiet. They get hammered by the press. They, mitigate as best they can, and then they get sentenced. And then now it's time to build. And you still got to wait till you go to prison and then come out. It's such a it's hard enough to go to prison and rebuild. You can't get a license in almost anything. Any state license, you're a felon now. And in some cases, you owe tons of money in restitution, or most. And so you have to overcome so many things already. Why not give the person an opportunity to start building right away? And I really wanted to show the world that. And I think I've done a good job of actually showing people you can, as long as your messaging is correct, right? Because I was remorseful for what I did. I was remorseful for the fact that there was, gambling addiction. Some people who were betting with me dealt with that. And then also the Shohei Ohtani scandal that occurred. I have a guy in prison, Ipe Mizahara, for 57 months. He's a grown man. He made a poor decision, but I played a part in that, and I have to own that. So I tried to show that, because everyone in these shoes tends to deflect, right? And I think you can deflect things that you aren't guilty of, but you should at least look in the mirror and own that first. And I think I did a good job of showing that during this whole process.
Did you grow up in California?
Yeah, in Cypress, North Orange County. I grew up middle-class family, truly had probably a perfect childhood for the first 12 years of my life. So a lot of people that go to prison usually have a darker past or kind of a rough childhood. I have no excuse for that. My childhood was great. But at 12 years old, there was a big shift in my life where my dad was a Vietnam War vet. He was an entrepreneur. He was running a bail bonds company, ironically, bailing people out of jail. And he was drinking heavily, 40 beers a day, 3 packs of cigarettes. And that was kind of the peak. So as his alcohol abuse, got bigger and bigger, my mom finally, after like 3 or 4 rehabs, just said enough's enough, and they got divorced. And when that divorce occurred, everything changed in my life. I went from a kid that was like, had the opportunity to get anything they wanted within reason. We had the river house, the boats, the jet skis, vacations. I had 3 brothers. So we did everything. And then now we struggle to do anything. I mean, not eat, but we struggled, compared to what we were used to be living. So it was like the blanket just got pulled. And that was a really good awakening for me to real life and starting to hustle. And that's when I became a paper boy, delivering the papers and, selling baseball cards and any form of hustling, which led to sports gambling, poker ring. 16 years old, I was running a local poker ring at my house because my mom was gone. She was working 3 jobs trying to keep us in the home. My dad was pretty much non-existent at this point, drinking a ton and chasing girls and, having his own life. And so my 2 older brothers were one was graduating high school, the other one was in high school. They were doing their own thing and, truly weren't really around much either. So it was me and my little brother, and he was 8 years old. So I just started figuring it out. I didn't want to ask my mom for money. So I started working at the racetrack. I started selling weed out of a gas station. I mean, any hustle you can think of, I was doing it. And I became an entrepreneur at like 14, 15 years old.
Who introduced you to poker? Because I didn't even learn how to play poker, or I still don't really know how until prison, but I was never, my friends didn't play poker as a kid growing up.
Sure.
So where'd you get that insight into it?
My family was raised, I was raised in a somewhat of a gambling atmosphere. So we would play Yahtzee for money with my grandparents. My grandparents would take me to the racetrack. So I already knew how to bet horses at 12, 13. And then my brothers, we all kind of gambled. We would bet on, I don't know if you remember Nintendo and Sega Genesis, all those, we would bet on that. Atari even. I mean, it didn't matter whatever we could gamble on, we were gambling on. So learning poker, I developed at like 12, 13 years old. And then later, about 16, I kind of mastered it. And then we were playing all card games. And then I learned to hustle. Really the art of hustling is about, betting something that you have an edge on. That's really the bottom line of hustling when it comes to gambling. And I was able to out hustle my neighborhood kids in almost everything, when it comes to gambling, because they didn't have the same things to overcome, adversity, I would say. And so I depended on making money, really. And they were given money from their parents and had a normal, good life. And, they didn't have that drive I had, where I had to win. I had to make money.
Do you think in a way gambling is introduced to every kid in a young age? I mean, I remember the days like even when we were playing dreidel at during Hanukkah, because half my family's Jewish, you're trading gold coins to win, essentially. Any type of thing, like you're betting maybe not doing chores, or you're getting a dessert after dinner. That concept of gambling's there, like trading something for winning.
I believe gambling, if the word gamble is so, the variance of the word is really, I mean, I'm actually glad you said this, because people who don't gamble do gamble. You gamble in life, right? Maybe your gamble is, what career you choose. I mean, you gamble on, getting in a car every day and driving to work. I mean, there's some form of gambling. But as far as financial gambling, I think we're all introduced to it somehow, some way. You're absolutely correct. And of course, when it comes to, gambling on sports or casinos, it's a little different level. And some people just don't have the stomach for it, or don't enjoy it. But I do believe everyone's gambling. It's just usually the best entrepreneurs are people that are most successful. They're gambling on a company or a stock, and it's more educated, of course. And I think the guys at my level are gambling on a flip of a coin or a card, or a football player catching a pass. I mean, that's definitely not as educated. I mean, we may think that we are by handicapping the game, but the reality is we just are chasing a dopamine rush, which is no different than drugs or alcohol, or even chasing girls, right? Sometimes it's just the rush. It's not even about the gamble per se. It's just the dopamine rush to get there.
What were you hustling for? What was your goal? Did you want to go to college? Did you have a certain career in mind?
At that age, I didn't care. I just wanted to make money. I didn't really know my future. college was never really a thing for me other than the experience I wanted. But I was never like a scholar. And to be honest, I used the girls in my high school to help me, study and cheat and do this and do my homework. My girlfriend at 15, who became my wife, she would do most of my homework. I was more of I sadly, I think it developed in that hustle, a skill to where I would try to find the easy way out of everything. And that's the one thing I did learn that was negative that I carried on to this day, which led me to be sitting here in front of you 29 days away from reporting to prison, because the easy dollar and the easy buck, I got a high out of that, of, cutting a class and still getting a B, or having someone else do my homework, doing the actual hard work. I didn't have a problem with, but I actually had more enjoyment of cutting that out and making, finding a way around it, which really is a talent in itself. But it's lazy. It's not putting in the grind. I mean, I put in the grind now, but there's ways to, you monetize that and use that skill set, especially in different ways. And I chose sports gambling and a business that was clearly a shortcut, and I made a ton of money doing it. But I always knew in the back of my mind that I had to look over my shoulder, and this day could come. And actually I knew it would come, to be honest.
How would you describe your character at the time as that 16, 17-year-old kid?
I would describe my character as a hustler, but I was raised properly. I definitely had manners, respect. My dad was a Vietnam vet, so if we got out of line, we got our ass whooped, and there was no question that we had to respect people, especially elders. And so being raised properly, and then watching my dad leave, and then not having that, I'm going to say, strong mentality of someone who's overriding everything you're doing, kind of made me start lapsing and making more, poor choices in judgment, to where, the hustling mentality became more of, I'm going to say I fell for that because it was the quick buck, the easy dollar, but also it was allowing me to have my own freedom and security. Whereas I was scared losing this lifestyle that we had and all the things that were comfortable to a young kid, where you're raised and you have this love in the house. And so when they got divorced, I went straight to work. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I just figured it out. And in that work process was just straight hustling. I mean, any format, whether it's baseball cards, I would drive around the neighborhood. I had tons of baseball cards. And if I saw you, Ian, outside playing, hey, Ian, you got cards? And you say, yeah. And I said, well, let's do some trading. And I would bring a box of dog shit cards, and I would trade you for 12 amazing cards that you don't even understand the value. Ken Griffey Jr., Mark McGwire rookies, and you're getting this box of all these players that are commons, and you thought you got a great deal. And I walked out with, maybe $180 worth of cards back then. And so that, instilled that hustle in me of how do I, find edges, which, yeah, I'm taking advantage of people. But to me, at that point in life, I just had to look out for myself. And, so it was instilling kind of a bad aura, but that hustle mentality carried on to where I am today, to be honest.
Do you think if your parents never got divorced, you never would have chose the path that you ended up going down?
Yeah, I don't want to blame. I hate to be a victim, because I'm not. So I want to say that first and foremost. But I do believe that my path would have been better, because your upbringing is everything. How your parents raise you and what your surroundings are and what you witness as a young kid really is who you become. They always say you end up like your parents, and we all try to act like we don't. But a lot of the things we do are based on our parents, grandparents, peers. So, and that's why it's so important. Kids who they hang out with is everything. That being said, again, I'm not a victim, but I do believe that my path would have been a little bit different, no question, as far as the hustle mentality, the grind, the drive. I maybe would have been an accountant or some sort of a regular job, so to speak, because I had that opportunity later anyway. So I have, again, no excuse, but I always chose the short path, that easy way out. And I think being in that environment of grinding to the point where you don't want to lose everything, because we ended up losing our house, and my mom moved into a mobile home park, and I had to move out on my own at 18. I got caught selling weed. My mom kicked me out. All of those things were because I was hustling, and I was just trying to have my own way and my own life.
Did you end up graduating high school?
I did. I graduated high school. I went on my mom kicked me out about 6 months before graduation. And by then I had my own truck. I was probably making 30 grand a year, which is a lot. This is, 1993. So
I wasn't even born yet.
yeah, a long time ago. I'm 50 now. So yeah, it was 32 years ago. And 30 grand a year 32 years ago is worth probably 200,000 now. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but quite a bit. And I was making a lot of money on the poker. I was making a lot of money selling weed. I was making money on baseball cards. So I bought my own car. I mean, I really didn't struggle for money at that age. And at 18, when I got kicked out of my house, I was still in high school. So I moved into my buddy's house with his mom, and we went on our senior trip. I came home and I found, right when we walked in, there was a scale and 2 pounds of weed. So I got kicked out of her house now. So I decided to shut that down, which, by the way, I've never even done drugs in my whole life. I was just selling, a little bit of weed. It was more of a business to me. I was more excited about the entrepreneur side. To this day, I still never have done any drugs. Never even tried cocaine. But point is, that hustle and that drive pulled me into doing things that I wasn't even into, but I just wanted to be a business guy because my brother sold some weed and I thought it was cool. But at 18, when I came back from my senior trip, I had to really grow up. So that's when I finally had my first taste of like reality. When I say reality, as an adult. Now I had to go get an apartment. I moved into a dumpy apartment in Huntington Beach, California, and I got a job at the John Wayne Airport, stacking books and magazines, kind of the clerk there. And then I would work there 6 to 2, and then from 2:30 to 10, I worked at Massimo Clothing Company, a warehouse job. So both these jobs were minimum wage, and working, literally 80 hours a week. And on the weekends, I would bet sports and go to the track and blow all the excess money because I was a degenerate gambler and I wasn't good at it. And so I would owe bookmakers money. I started developing all these bad habits and problems and, barely paying my bills, borrowing money to, just pay these basic essential bills. And the life was headed down the wrong path. Clearly didn't go to college. I couldn't afford it and didn't want to anyway. So fast forward I think we had a 1-year lease or it was a 6-month lease. And as the lease is ending, I knew my path was bad. So my mom gave me an opportunity to move back to the mobile home park that she now moved into, which was really pride swallowing because we had this, life of a big home in Cyprus and a very good life. So now my mom lives in a mobile home park. And it's a double wide 2-bedroom mobile home park. My mom was in one room, my brother was in the other. And after 6 months of living in an apartment by myself, going nowhere, my ex-wife gets pregnant. So here I am, 18 years old, have no path, no future really, and now I'm going to bring a baby into the world, and I can't even take care of myself. So it was like this reflection of like, I need to really get my shit in order here. I'm about to bring a baby in the world. So we decided to move in with my mom, and we didn't have a bedroom. So we're on the couch of a mobile home park. Very pride swallowing. When I envision a mobile home park, I think white trash, I think M&M, I think, which is fine. I mean, but it's still pride swallowing, right? So I go in this mobile home park and I'm working these jobs that are endless or have no future. And I said, you know what? I need to make at least real money now that I have a baby coming. So the only job I really thought of was being a waiter because waiters make good money for an 18 to 35-year-old, range. I mean, you can make money even as a 45-year-old, 50-year-old, but to bring a baby in the world and make really decent money at that point, I was like, I'll be a waiter. So there was this local area in Dana Point, California, where we lived that was establishing a new restaurant. It's called Chevy's, Mexican food chain. So I went in the restaurant. This guy, GM, sits me down, interviews me. I use my charisma, and I said, I'd like to be a waiter. And he says, well, we can hire you as a busboy. You have no waiting experience. And I said, okay, how long will it take me to move up? And he's like, depending on your abilities, not too long. I said, all right, then I'll take it. So I'm serving chips and salsa and replenishing water. But I started making more in tips than the waiters were because I realized I had an opportunity where it was a very affluent area, wealthy people with nice watches coming in, and you just felt the vibe of money. And it was a really a nice exclusive area. So I started pitching myself for possible opportunities without over pitching it, telling these people that I have aspirations and et cetera. So this particular couple kept coming in and they asked to sit in my section. I didn't have a section. I was a busboy. So the waiters were getting upset that I was empowering them by making more money, but they just didn't do their job. I made up for whatever their lack of service was. And this couple comes in and they say, hey, listen, the wife actually says, we would be interested in having you come down and do an interview. And I said, I'm in, let's go. So I get in my hoopty car and I drive down to, I go to Marshall's and get a cheap tie, and I go down to this interview. And this couple was really nice when they came to the restaurant. So his name is Mickey, and very successful guy. He's 28 years old, driving a Ferrari. He's got a $6 million home, whatever it was. And I walk into this building. It was like Wolf of Wall Street. I walk in this building and you see all these young guys. And mind you, when I first pull up, I'm in this $400 beater. There's Ferraris, Mercedes. I mean, all the cars a 18-year-old kid dreams of. And I walk in there and the environment was just chaos. Exactly what you see in Wolf of Wall Street. Guys yelling, they're on the phones, headsets, just this vibe that was so exciting, right? I had no idea what it was. Zero. I sit down for this interview and he grills me for an hour and a half. And when I say grills me, he's literally belittling me. Why didn't you go to college? How did you knock up your girlfriend? What is your future? What is it? Why would I hire you? I mean, it just grinds me, right? So I walk out of this interview. I'm like, there's no way I got this job. And he calls me back about a week later for interview number 2. So I'm, oh, okay. So I go down there and it's another hour of just belittling. So after about 40 minutes or so, I just said, you know what? His name is Mickey. I said, Mickey, I'm sorry, but I think you're misinterpreting who I am. I'm a guy who's going to work harder than anyone you have in this company. I'll prove it. You've seen me at the restaurant. There's a reason you had me here. Let's be real. I didn't go to college. I'm not going to make excuses for some of the poor choices I've made to this point. But if you want a kid who's going to come in here and work harder than anyone and sponge everything that you guys are doing here, I don't even know what it is, don't care. I just see that there's opportunity and money. I'm motivated by money. Give me an opportunity. If you want to continue to tell me what I haven't done in my life, we can sit here as long as you want. And because I kind of fought back a little bit, I think that's why he gave me the job. So I was so excited. He gives me a job. I don't even know what the job is. Don't even know where it is in the company. Don't care. It's $1,200 a month, working 60 hours a week as the mailroom boy. Okay, so, but I'm happy. That's actually decent money for me at that time. And it's in Irvine, California. So I get the job. I start working with him. But what I didn't realize, Ian, is that I'm working for him he's my mentor. I'm his personal assistant while I'm doing the mail job. So reporting to him, taking his calls, like just handling all his personal stuff. And so I got to sponge the smartest guy I've ever met in my life. I'm like, this is the greatest job in the world. And so we developed this great, really friendship, even though I'm just working for him. But what happens was back then there was no internet. So all the phone calls that come in, I'm on the phone and I'm transferring the calls to the broker of the day. And when I transfer the phone call, I hit mute on the headset. Instead of hanging up like I'm supposed to, I would just sponge and learn everything that all the sales are doing. And it was a commodity brokerage firm. So now I'm realizing what commodities are: soybeans, crude oil, gold, silver, no idea, right? So I'm like, wow, this is exciting shit, man. I can't believe what I'm listening to. So as I heard all these different variables of like sales guys, I think I'm pretty good, at selling. I've already proven that with the Orange County Register. When I was 14, I won the record in Orange County for sales. Won my mom a trip to Waikiki, and I was competing against 18-year-old kids. And if I knocked on the door and you answered, you were buying the Orange County Register, whether you wanted it or not. There's no way you're getting me out of there unless you slammed at my face. But the point is, I learned that grit, hard work, determination, and that grind. So now I'm seeing that, wow, I can make real money. And these guys are driving cars. I mean, they're making big money. And they all liked me because I was really good at my job, sending out their starter kits right away, handling the customers. And when they first contact was me, and I would set it up the best I could. And it was a simple job, but I really mastered it. And so now I realize there's a Series 3 license is what I need to get to be a broker. So I start studying it. All my downtime, weekends. I've never studied anything like this for my life that hard. So, as you know, I didn't really study in school. So I'm like, okay, I make these flashcards. About 6 months go by. I go to Mickey and I say, Mickey, I want to take the Series 3 exam. He's like, what are you talking about? You're in the mailroom. You got to wait till you get promoted to an assistant broker. We don't sponsor. It costs money. We can't waste the time and the money for, just to put some kid in front of the test. I hand him the stack of cards and I said, well, just ask me any question. Let's see if I know what I'm talking about. So he grabs them and he asks me like 3 or 4 questions. And of course I answer him. He's like, okay, you seem like you've really been studying, huh? I said, more than you know. He goes, well, let's wait till we promote you and then we'll give you the opportunity right away. And I said, no. I said, I'll make you a deal. If I don't pass the exam, you can fire me. I'll quit. I'm that confident. He's like, you want to risk your job? I said, I'll risk everything. He's like, all right, you got it. So I go in, I take the Series 3 exam, pass it, 72, 83. You have to get 70 on both parts, barely pass the rules and regulations. And one of the best days of my life, first taste of real success. So I have this exam from the government that shows that I took this state exam. I now am licensed Series 3 broker at 18 years old. Well, I have a license to be a broker. So I go back to the company and he hires me as an assistant broker now, promotes me, and I'm now working for the top broker. So I have the sponging of now working for the best broker there. And so I got the best sales training. 1 year goes by, we break every record in the company. We're number one, competing against all these. There's probably 90 brokers. And he makes a lot of money. He's bonusing me. I'm making really good money for a 19-year-old kid. And fast forward, about maybe a year goes by of me working for this guy. And he says, Mickey pulls me in and says, I have an opportunity for you. You've proven yourself. I'm opening a brand new discount brokerage firm. It's called Newhall Discount. I want you to open it and run it. You've shown me your loyalty. I said, I mean, another taste of great success, right? So here I am turning 20. I go open this brokerage firm. Because what was happening then is we were charging $95 for a trade. Now it's like $1 or $2, today. People were leaving and going to firms for lower rates because we were charging a lot. So he opened this firm to kind of handle that. Anyone leaving, I would save the deal, get them to come with us, and we charge $55. So in doing so, I now am promoted to working for myself. I'm a broker. So I build this portfolio. I basically became the number one retail broker in the world for 11 years straight. And in that process, at 21 years old, the home that my parents lost came up for sale. So I bought it. I moved back into my home in Cypress, California. 2-year-old daughter sleeping in the room I grew up in. I'm sleeping in my parents' bedroom. A little eerie, but really cool. And I had a Mercedes. I come in the neighborhood. All these guys who I work with are just baffled by my success. And I'd say about 40 of them I hired to work for us. And they all end up making a shit ton of money. And that's when it all started. That's where my bookie business started developing. Because now I make real good money. I still love sports and gambling more than anything. That was my vice. And I'm developing a situation where I have all these guys making a shit ton of money, and they're spending it on hookers, cocaine, and gambling because most of them aren't family guys, or if they are, they're still fucking around. And my vice was gambling. I wasn't into drugs or hookers, so let's just make this the best of the both worlds. So I was still betting with bookies and screwing around on my own and still a degenerate, but I was like, you know what? If I keep losing to bookies, which I did the rest of my life, I can get it fed from this business. So I started developing, a bookmaking business, taking sports bets. And that started superseding the money I was making as a commodity broker. And so at 21, 22, I started making $300,000 to $700,000 a year as a broker, but then I was making more than that as a bookmaker. So now I started developing, going to Las Vegas and bringing, $300,000, $400,000, and eventually got up to where I was bringing later in life $2-3 million.
How did you know how to set up the bookie business? Were you just watching the bookies you were betting with, or was it like YouTube? Was YouTube around at that point?
YouTube wasn't even around.
So how would you get the knowledge?
Yeah, so because I've been gambling since I was like 12, and I've bet with many bookmakers at this point, I saw how they ran their operation, and I knew I could do it better. I mean, basically, anyone watching this video, my advice to them is always sponge what you want to do from somebody who's successful and then make it your own. And you can always do it better based on what you learn, right? That has really been my biggest form of success because I didn't even know how to do social media until a year ago. I started my social media account, right? I'm still learning. I'm still sponging from people and trying to be better at it, right? But the point is you have to master it by learning from people that are better at it than you and then make it your own. To answer your question, I developed basically taking action from the players that I had relationships with. And then what happened was the internet came along and I saw a vision of scalability. And so I was one of the forefront guys to go over to Costa Rica and not open a shop, but hire a shop. That's called a per head shop. What that means is they have a facilitation in Costa Rica that they handle call centers, internet for online wagering. And I couldn't scale my business because I was answering the phone myself with like 30 to 50 guys, not even that big. But now I said to myself, if I can have these guys do all the hard work, which is really taking the bets, and it's all on a service on a computer, the numbers are set for me, I can probably make this thing tenfold what it is. And that's exactly what I did. And so by the internet and by the scalability of the business, I took it from a local operation in Orange County and made it global.
Yeah, so when people think bookie, they think you're going to the bar and handing in some money and they're writing it down in a journal. This
Correct.
was way bigger than that.
That's how it started. And yes, that's how I envisioned it. But when the internet came around, I saw it as an absolute business. And then no, that whole model was long gone. My operation I was moving $5 to $7 million on Mondays throughout the country, Australia, Hong Kong, even mostly United States, but even those other countries. And getting the money from A to B was probably the biggest challenge. But growing the business was me scaling the operation by training agents to understand an agent is a person that works under my operation. And what they do is they develop customer base underneath them, and I'm the house of all the action. So let's say you have 10 guys that want to gamble. You would set them up on my website. You would handle those 10 players, paying them and collecting with my money. And then you would take a percentage, anywhere from 10 to 50% of all the proceeds. But you have no risk. And all you have to do is manage them, make sure they pay, make sure they're solid people. They're not just some guy you met at a bar. It's like a true friend of yours and maybe his uncle or whatever. And you would manage that. That's how I scaled it even more, because I can only talk to so many people. But if I have a network of people that I could be the house and I have the money to back it, they can just kind of go out there and get business. So car dealerships were great. I had a lot of guys who were car sales guys or GMs at car dealerships. All those guys gambled. So they get 30 guys at a car dealership, and they show up at work and they bring their money every Monday or Tuesday or get paid. Golf courses, prime spot. I mean, almost every golfer gambles, whether it's on golf or sports or something.
Were you taking credit card payments too?
I didn't really do credit cards. It was hard because I didn't have the ability to run a Stripe or whatnot. But I would use, if I had to, I could use a credit card to like pay something. But I would take almost any form of payment: Venmo, Cash App, Apple Pay, crypto, wires, checks, cash, watches, cars. I've received Audi A4s. I've received all kinds of stuff.
But when you first started, that didn't exist.
Venmo
and stuff.
No, they didn't even have Venmo or Cash App back then.
So how would you do online payments at the time?
When it first came online, I didn't receive any online payments. It was checks and cash. But as Venmo and Cash App and all that made my job even easier to move the money around the country. And some of the issues were like, to give you an example, let's say I have a guy in Pennsylvania and he wins $8,000. So now I have to figure out, how does he want to be paid? Does he want Venmo, Cash App, or cash? And if it's cash, I have to FedEx 8,000 to him or get a driver or somebody to fly to him. But for $8,000, I wouldn't do that. So you FedEx them or UPS them the money. So there's a lot of ways around it, but that's the logistics part that was so complicated, especially when you're dealing at my peak was about 1,200 customers. When I was rated by the feds, I had about 750. But I had more that owed me money. They weren't actually gambling.
So at 750 is big, but it's still small compared to most of these sites, and you got rated in fairly recent time. So was it more of an exclusive type community that you're dealing with? Yeah,
I was more of the high-end. Molly's game for poker for me would be more my description of as a sports book. So there's a lot of bookmakers that had 2,000 clients, but they have guys betting $500 a game. My 800, let's call it, the average bet is probably 10,000 a game. I have guys that are tycoons, entrepreneurs, athletes, celebrities that were betting through my site, which I don't disclose in the book because I still have that respect for them and didn't want to out them just because I got in trouble. But they were, very wealthy individuals that they know they could trust that they were going to get paid $400,000 or $500,000 or $1 million in a week when they, would win or lose. I mean, the figures were very, very big.
Now, say you take in $5 million in 1 week, say a week during NFL season and basketball season. How much is that would you end up winning? Like, is your share after all is said and done?
It varies, because the reason I say I can't answer that question is because I could have taken $5 million in volume, and which is small, by the way. I would say more like, to be honest, I would say more like 50 million in volume. But then in that particular week, I might lose $1 million. I might actually have to pay out $1 million, or I could have netted 3 million my way after agents and paying the website and it's just runners and all the logistics. But on average, in 2023, I think I filed on my return, I made, I don't know, 14 to 15 million.
Net.
Yeah.
Now, were you claiming all of this money? I know you said you filed.
So
everything was legitimate?
I did in 2023. I actually overfiled, meaning, I filed the correct return, but I had to pay taxes on money I didn't even receive from people I got stiffed on. But my 2022 return that I'm charged for, I tried to defend this with the IRS, but they didn't accept it, which was, I sent 600 and I think it was 680 or 640. I don't remember, 600. They even said in the courtroom, my attorney said in the plea to the government, I sent 600 and whatever it was, $1,000 to the federal government for the IRS. But they had me making 4.8 million, I think it was. And what our argument was, and what wasn't acceptable, was that of the 4.8 million, I lost $4 million in casinos that year. Offsetting action, betting sports against my business, hedging stuff. They wouldn't accept that because I was running an illegal business. They wouldn't allow me to offset my gambling against it. That's why I received a charge for 2022 for falsified tax return. So my charge, it looks, again, sensationalized media says tax fraud, or this, you've seen it, but it doesn't explain the real truth behind it. I'm a father of 5. I live in a $5 million home. I mean, you don't buy a home without having tax returns and paying taxes. So, and I bought multiple properties. I've been doing it my whole life. So I filed as a professional gambler, and I sent millions of dollars to the IRS. So it wasn't like I was completely not paying the right amount. I wasn't paying the right amount. Don't get me wrong. I'm not deflecting. I definitely committed a crime by not paying the proper amount. But I thought by filing as a professional gambler, I could offset my gambling. But their perception is you made money illegally, you pay the taxes, and what you do with it from there is on you, even though I was offsetting a lot of it through the casinos or other bookmakers. But that was, when you're doing something illegal, you don't really have much of an argument.
Now, you're watching people lose money through you. That's how you make money.
Right.
Why would you still go out and gamble yourself?
That's a great question. Everyone's been telling me that for 30 years because I love it. And it's an addiction, and the dopamine rush is unlike anything you've ever witnessed. I've never done heroin, right? But when you talk to a person who's done heroin, they describe the high as being the highest high, and they always chase that first high, right? I imagine the dopamine rush of betting $4.6 million on a football game, which is what I did in 2023. So when you have a $9 million bet on a game in 3 hours, I can't tell you the amount of dopamine rushes going through your body. And that's a feeling that you always chase as a gambler. Some people are smart about their gambling. They don't gamble for dopamine rush. They gamble for, it's very, very small, minute, less than 1% to make money. Most people gamble for the entertainment and the rush of the gambling. I took it to a different level. That's me. That's why I've never done cocaine. I would do a line of cocaine and I would do a pound of it because that's my personality. There's no, governor in me. It's go, go, go. And it's a good thing if you harness it correctly. But I didn't harness it correctly when it came to A, picking an illegal business, or B, my personal gambling. And I knew I would lose because it's a track record of losses over years. I mean, tons of millions of dollars. But I still wanted to beat something that was unbeatable. And people who gamble, especially through bookmakers or on sports, will understand what I'm saying. But people who don't will be like, you're an idiot. And I get that because I look at a person who has a drug addiction, and to me, I'm like, well, you're an idiot. Why don't you just quit? Well, it's easier said than done because I'm not the one who's had that high. So I've learned a lot about judging people over the last 2 years, especially because I think we're all guilty of that. And especially if you've never walked in their shoes. But now that I've walked in some different shoes that I'm used to walking in, I really don't, I shouldn't say I don't. I try not to judge people at all, whatever their vices or problem. Because, now that I've felt that heat, which you have as well, and now that I'm walking into prison, who am I to judge somebody and say that I'm better than them or I couldn't do that or I should never have done that when I've done some things I shouldn't have.
Now, because you're dealing with I guess, people that are wealthier and a specific group of individuals, and you're more selective.
Right.
What about when it comes to them paying when they lose? I'm sure you're extending credit and whatnot.
Right.
How would that look?
It looked a lot more aggressive when I was younger. You just had Owen Hansen here, great friend of mine, the California kid. There's his California Ice Protein right there, which I'm proud of him. He's overcoming adversity. But our relationship started with me betting with him. I don't know if you know this story. I'll give it to you because it's really good. I went to Vegas. Well, let me backpedal. I met Owen, started betting with him. First week I won, I think it was like 110,000 on him. No, I'm sorry, that's not true. I won like 80 something thousand from him. And he came and paid me. He's very honorable. The second week, I lost 100 and something thousand to him. But I went to Vegas that weekend and blew a bunch of money, like 2 million. I came home, my operation got beat up too. So I owed like $1 million. So all of my excess cash was toasted and I had to pay Vegas and I had to pay my operation. That's first and foremost. And so Owen, I put on the back burner on that list. And we've never met. We only met the first week. He actually wired the money. The second week was when I had to make that phone call and say, Owen, I'm sorry, but you're going to get paid, but I'm going to need a few weeks. And, you don't know this business, but in the bookmaking world, when you take someone's money and then you don't pay them the very next week, their money back, at least, that is like a cardinal sin. You might as well try to sleep with their wife. I mean, it's really the worst thing you could do. And so I addressed that immediately because that's how I work. And I said, look, I'm a degenerate. I just blew a bunch of money. I got to pay my customers. He's like, I don't give a flying shit what you got to say. You're going to pay me. And I respected that. And I said, listen, I just told you, you'll get paid. It's going to be a few weeks. He's like, that's unacceptable. So then I'm a very kind guy, but I have a little bit of a temper when I'm disrespected. And even though I deserved it, I didn't want to hear it because I was in really good shape and thought I was a tough motherfucker, which was really funny because after training jiu-jitsu, I realized I'm not. And so I said, if that's a problem for you, then we can handle it however you like. And Owen said, well, that is a problem. I said, well, how about I just fucking text you my address, motherfucker, and we'll find out what kind of problem it is. He says, no problem. Give it to me right now. Gave him my address. He jumped in his fucking car and his Range Rover and drove right to my house. So I laced up my shoes and I told my ex at the time, I said, I'm going to have a little altercation here in about 45 minutes because he was coming from Manhattan Beach, Redondo Beach. And I said, okay. So I sat on the porch, never met him. Owen pulls up in a white Range Rover, and I'm in Aliso Viejo, California. He comes to a gated community, and he kind of pulls up fast, gets out of the car, and you saw him. He's a big guy. And back then, by the way, he was tatted up from neck down. He had them all removed. So his entire body is tatted, and he was pretty jacked. And in my mind, I said, fuck this. And he's 7 years younger than me. And I said, fuck. But I was in really good shape then, much better than I am now. And I also thought I was invincible, So I stood up and I said, I guess we're going to dance, huh? And he came around the car and he started smiling. And then I could see the look in his eye. Like, you could tell when you're about to get in a squabble. And I could tell that he didn't want to fight. And he came over, he says, man, I got to meet this guy that's got more balls than I do. And I said, then I kind of, took a deep breath because like, fuck. First of all, I don't want to brawl at my house. I have kids. Number two, I was in the wrong. And number three, this guy had a lot of nerve to come down and, call me out. So anyway, I ended up giving him I had like 10 grand. I had more money, but I had to keep it for my business. So I gave him like 10 grand just to show him good faith. We hit it off. We've been friends ever since. And that was literally 15 years ago.
How much, on the topic of cash, how much would you say on average were you keeping in cash on you?
I had 12 million at my peak. in cash. That was the most I've ever had in my life. I'll never forget it because I couldn't believe it. I counted it like 10 times. That was the peak of my cash. But sometimes 2 million, sometimes 0, sometimes 5. It really depended on my gambling, my personal gambling, my business, I had so many things going on because the way I gambled was so high myself. It actually superseded my business at times. Because when you're taking, $2 million to a casino, literally every 2 weeks, you could win 5 million or you could blow 5 million. And that changes your net worth drastically because I'm not Jeff Bezos. I don't have that kind of money. So, I was literally gambling my entire net worth sometimes, or even more than I had, because I knew I always had the business to back it up. And I knew I always would make money and always repay any problems I created. But that's the dopamine rush and the gambling talking. The smart man would be, risk 10% of your bankroll, or, okay, I've lost 3 trips in a row, shut it down. The gambling addict is going to be like, I just lost 3 trips. I'm not going to lose 4. Let's go get it back. Let's go. And you get on a private jet. And the other problem is that people don't realize is when you gamble at that level, the white glove service that I was receiving is unlike anything, unmatched in the world. I mean, I would be sitting with you today talking about gambling and kind of excites me, right? And I would just text my wife right now and say, hey, babe, let's go to Vegas. I'm ready. And pack up our stuff. She'd pack up for my little boy, and the nanny. We'd jump on a plane within 2 hours. Resorts World would have a G550 sitting on John Wayne Airport at the ACI jet private. We would be there in 2 hours. Within 3 hours, I'd be in Vegas in my room with $2 million, ready to gamble. And the room we were in, it was 8,000 square feet with a pool, 3 butlers, movie theater room in it, caviar, lobster, Screaming Eagle, Louis, whatever we wanted. If we wanted peanut butter cookies with M&Ms on it, that's what you're getting. If my son wanted a particular set of diapers in a crib, that was delivered. The service is unlike anything in the world. And then we go to dinner, and the dinner might cost $14. In fact, I put a picture on my website of one of our dinners because some of the things I say sound so chaotic that I think people don't believe me, right? Because it's crazy. So I just put pictures of proof on my website, MatthewBowyer.com. I have a picture of a dinner. It was $14,500 at Guy Sauvage. There was 4 of us.
I see a lot of these types of receipts like on social media and stuff. And I'm like, how does someone spend that much on a dinner? I know a lot of it's alcohol related, most the bottles.
In my case, most of it was wine, of course. Yeah. But the dinner itself was probably $3,000.
It's still so much. I mean, my most expensive dinner for 2 people, I think, was like $500.
Well,
$450.
I can tell you that I've had a dinner with a mutual friend of ours, Mr. Hot Rod, I call him, at Nobu at Caesar's Palace. He came, and so he's seen a lot of this firsthand. And our dinner was $8,500. I remember because I was like, Nobu's very expensive.
Yeah.
We were ordering actually liquor too, but Nobu can get ugly quick if you order, the high-end tunas and whatnot. We had a big group, like 10 of us. But anyway, that dinner in particular was $8,500. But these experiences, I mean, I've been at nightclubs with Calvin Harris, $50,000 for our table. I mean, that's ridiculous, right? I would never pay $50,000 out of my pocket, but I was getting it comped. So, I've been at private concerts with Pitbull, meet and greets with Andrea Bocelli. My wife and I have been every casino in the country, Monte Carlo, Bahamas, Dominican Republic, Panama. I closed down a casino in Panama called the Ocean Sun. I won $4 million there. I never lost. They're out of business now. They're actually open. They have slot machines only. So I've experienced the highest highs and the lowest lows. I mean, when I was in Monte Carlo, I was with these Russian oligarchs that had a $400 million yacht parked out front. I mean, literally, I have pictures of the yacht. It looked like a spaceship.
How much would these casinos extend you in credit? And I bring it up because I was just reading an article in Connecticut. We have Foxwoods and Mohegan. And there's a movie exec, I think Warner Brothers or something.
Right.
All these articles are coming out. He's being sued for owing $25 million.
Sure.
And you look at it like, how did you even get to the point of being extended $25 million in credit?
So they'll extend you credit based on how much equity you have in your, not in your home, but in your bank account, and how often you come, how much you gamble, how many times you've paid. Mine was $2 million, and they wouldn't go higher than $2 million because I was a bookmaker and they knew it, even though they act like they didn't. and I never really carried a large bank balance. My bank balances were at my peak 3-4 million because I was dealing in cash. So I might have seriously $300,000 in my bank account sometimes, but I'd go to a casino with a $2 million credit line because they knew that, I would pay it in cash or I would pay it. So it's really interesting because the casinos are, by the way, that's part of this is why I got into this case. It's all based on the casinos. They're currently having an issue with the federal government right now because they allowed KYC, know your customer rule, to be looked aside, so to speak, especially in my case. And because of that, they're supposed to follow those guidelines, right? If a bookmaker is coming in and he has an income for owning, let's say, a Subway for 60 grand a year, how is he betting $300,000 on a hand of Baccarat? Because that's what I was betting, $300,000 at my peak per hand every 30 seconds. So you can't explain that. If I don't own a Subway, but I own a jiu-jitsu studio, but I filed as a professional gambler, and I made big money on my return, but not where I could afford to bring. I lost $13 million at Resorts World in a year and a half.
What would happen if you didn't pay their credit? When does it start to get to, I guess, vicious in a way? I'm sure they're not sending people to your house.
No, they did in the old days, though. 20, 30 years ago when the mob was there, yeah, it was a different story. But now it's so corporate, and now they actually have the best collection agency in the world. It's called jail. So in Clark County, Nevada, if you write a check for over $250 or more and it bounces and you don't make it right, they will take you to the district attorney's office. You'll pay a 10% penalty. They'll give you a 6-month window to make payments and pay it off. And if you don't, they'll arrest you and put you in jail.
So now say you use your whole $2 million credit line at the casino.
Right.
How long do you have to pay that back?
30 days.
30 days from
you
when
can get an extension, though. They'll work with you within reason, but the marker is basically set for 30 days.
And what happens if you don't pay it on day 31?
You better be calling them because what they're going to do is drop the marker through your bank account as a check, because a marker is basically a check you're writing to the casino for that allotted amount.
Oh, so it's like an ACH type transfer it's like an e-check.
That's correct.
Oh, so if it bounces, that's how that's the leverage.
That's the crime.
Have you ever had that happen?
Oh, many times. Absolutely. I'm a degenerate.
But would you always pay it?
I ended up paying it, but I've even been taken to the Clark County District Attorney. The Wynn did that to me. I lost $3 million in a weekend and came home. My business got beat up, same situation. And I had to pay my customers. And I couldn't pay the Wynn on time, and they weren't willing to really work out a payment structure that I could handle, so they took me to the DA's office.
Now, in your situation, though, you probably had good cash flow because you're a bookie too.
Correct.
Isn't it, in essence, kind of like a big Ponzi scheme? There's still an actual investment being made because you have the business, but you're floating one person's bet to pay off your other bet because you keep losing.
Yeah, Ponzi scheme would be definitely the wrong analogy, and I say that because the bookmaker's job is really to take the action from all players and just pay the winners with the losers' money, and then whatever's left over is for him to keep, or pay all the winners, use the losers to pay, and then, of course, if you lose more still, because sometimes they win more than you lose, you got to pay out of pocket. So, in a sense, you could rob from Peter to pay Paul, but you have to cover all the winning bets or you're going to go out of business. Because, if you were a customer of mine and I don't pay you, and let's say some of these other people are friends of yours, you're just going to tell them he doesn't pay. They're not going to stop betting. I'm going to lose my business. You can't, as a bookmaker, you have to pay your customers.
So you wouldn't, even if you were losing big and owed other bookies, you wouldn't use the money that people were giving you until those bets were settled?
I would pay my customers first and foremost.
Okay, so you always waited for the bets to settle for the week, and then you would take whatever money was left to cover your losses.
Absolutely. Yeah. And my customers got paid literally before I put a diaper in my son. And I'm saying that sarcastically, but the truth be told, that was the bread and butter. I knew that, and you have to pay your customers. And paying other problems that I created, whether it was the Wynn or Las Vegas casinos or bookmakers, I would pay that, but I would pay that as my last resort. And, that's not the right attitude. If you create a debt, you should just pay it. But when you're a guy who's gambling, extensively over your bankroll, which I was, you create problems, and I'm guilty of that. So I think the reason I was such a good bookmaker is because I was also a player. I was a gambler. So every feeling that person on the other side of the phone with me had, I've had times 10. And I would resonate with that and tell them. I'd say, look, whatever you're feeling right now, pretend it's you, Ian. I'd say, Ian, you owe me $25,000, whatever the number is, doesn't matter. It's all relative to the person and the bankroll in their life. I'd say, I understand the feeling. I said, we can work this out. You don't need to go and crack your 401k. You don't need to tell your wife, but you have to be reasonable and make payments. How about $1,000 a week? Can we start with that? No, I can't do that. Okay, what can you do? And that's where you negotiate and have a good relationship. Because ultimately, as a bookmaker, you don't want them to go broke. You don't want them to lose more than they can handle. This is where I think bookmakers are, if done properly, are better than DraftKings and FanDuel, because they actually have a rapport and relationship. I had many clients for 20, 30 years that they wanted to write letters to the judge, and they lost millions of dollars to me to say that integrity was there, honest, great person, handled things professionally, never put pressure on them, worked with them. Of course, that letter wouldn't do me well in court, and I was grateful that they offered that. But, they really appreciated the service and the relationship that I built and we had over a 20-year period. And I looked at it as an annuity. If a guy wants to pay me $500 a week for the rest of his life, and I can allow him to actually feed his gambling addiction, because I had the same thing. I know it. I just wanted action as well. That's all they really want for the most part, is just to have action on games and excitement. Because when you gamble on a game for whatever the amount is that makes you feel that, whether it's $500 or $50,000, all you're looking to do is enhance the experience of a 3-hour game. I mean, that's what you are gambling for. I mean, think about why people gamble. It's to enhance the experience, to make it feel a little bit more, like there's something to gain, right? And of course they want to win. I mean, everybody wants to win. You don't go to a casino or you bet with a bookie to lose, but over time, everybody knows you're probably going to lose. I mean, the casinos aren't getting built on losers, right? Or winners. I think that's evident here, and even with my own life. I mean, your question earlier is so valid. Right? Why would you gamble when you know you're going to lose? And my answer is because I loved it, and I still thought I could win, not over time, but in those moments, it's like because you have scores. You'll go win. I won $3.2 million at a dice table in I'm not joking, 48 minutes, and you always chase those things because it's plausible, but over time, you're not going to win.
So do you think when you look at all of your wins and losses, do you come out positive or negative?
No, definitely not. I've lost millions on millions. No chance. And less than 1% do win.
Overall, by the time they quit.
100%. And the only people that are winning are AI nerds with robots and algorithms that don't even watch the games, don't even know much about sports, and they're literally running a serious algorithm. It's breaking the game down 100,000 different ways, and they're not using any emotion on their gambling. It's a business. And they have hard times getting accounts because they're so good at betting sports that they get cut off everywhere. So that's the challenge of being a bookmaker today, is you have a lot of that going on with ChatGPT and people becoming so smart and intelligent. Well, they're intelligent to use what the sources that we all have now, which is computers and robots, right? So that wasn't really evident 10, 15 years ago.
Now, going back to the Owen situation, how common is it for bookies to actually pull through on their threats? Like, you hear these stories of people threatening they're going to hurt you. And these situations, are they actually hurting someone, or it's just not worth it and they're writing it off as a loss, or you can't really get blood from a stone?
I mean, every bookmaker is different, and I can't speak for all of them, but I could say in general, anyone who has a brain and is running a real operation is not going to put their hands on anyone. You're exposing yourself to federal agents, to losing your business, to ruining everything you have. I learned as I got older, I said, what, if I gave a customer credit and he screwed me, then it's my job. It's my fault. I did not vet the customer properly. The referral source wasn't good. I didn't do my homework. I didn't maybe get his driver's license and get his home address and just make him feel a little bit more inept to paying me. I would say nowadays it's much less than ever because there's a camera in every corner as well. We all know that people just pick up the phone and call the feds and you're out of business. So even the guys who used to be, I think, a little bit more violent, let's call it. I'm not saying hurting people, but maybe going over to the house and grabbing them by the shirt and making them pressured, I think is gone, truly. Don't get me wrong, it's still a sick world. I mean, look what happened with Charlie Kirk yesterday. And the world has some serious sickos in the world and people that are violent for no reason, let alone a reason that you give them a reason. So there are bookmakers that are going to do things that they shouldn't and be violent or put pressure on people in the wrong manner, but it's far and few between, especially the real guys who are running a business properly.
Now, when you think about the concept of credit, in your eyes, say you give someone $25,000 in credit who hasn't won money from you, or you guys are even, like he's won and then lost and whatnot. How do you look at that money if he loses and doesn't pay you?
A write-off.
Like, because you're not technically out anything. You didn't physically give him the money.
Correct. And that's the point of the business where, again, you just got to look in the mirror. Anyone who's a bookmaker needs to say to themselves, I made a poor choice in judgment of giving too much credit to the wrong person. And, it's better that it happens, then as a smaller amount as opposed to for 200,000. I try to really, especially now after what I've been through and you've been through this, like when you go to prison or you've been through a federal case, you try to find all the shining lights and positivity. And when it comes to giving credit, you really have to make as a bookmaker, you have to make a decision based on, again, the referral is key. What does he do for a living? What is he asking you for? As the dollar amounts get bigger, you got to do even more of that vetting, because you're exposed. Because if he wins 50,000, you got to pay him. So I think the bookmaker's main objective first is like, how aggressive is this guy betting and what is he looking to do? How much can he hurt you? And then if it's not a lot, giving an account to a guy for a $2,000 credit line, if he stiffs you, it's $2,000. You'll never talk to him again. It sucks, but whatever. If it's 200,000 or 20, and he could beat you up for that kind of money, different situation.
What's the most amount of money someone's owed you?
Right now, 24 million.
Currently?
From Ipe Mizahara, who's currently in federal prison.
And that relates to the scandal.
Correct. Yeah. Another gentleman stiffed me for 12 million. I walked away from $44 million that is currently owed to me throughout the country that I can't receive.
Because of the case.
Yeah. And if I do receive any of that money, continue to commit a crime.
Now, before that, what was the most someone owed to you?
Well, 12 million was the biggest before Ipe.
And they paid that?
No. 12 million is the most I ever got stiffed. Getting paid, I mean, that gentleman paid me almost 2 million before he finally did stiff me. So I've had some big payouts from people over time, but being stiffed for 12 and 24, those are big numbers. I mean, $36 million right there, and it's just two guys.
When someone racks up a large debt, do you feel bad for them? Like, say they're a family man? Or...
Of course. I'm human. I got a heart. I'm a family guy. I mean, I'm greedy. I clearly set them up an account because I wanted to earn money off of them, so I'm not an angel. But my conversations really with people were trying to control that from happening. Not to make myself look good because I was running a legal business, but like if I'm setting up an account, I would rather control you to where you can enjoy and have a good experience and gamble and have fun with it and keep it manageable for you. Because the main objective for a bookmaker, in truth, this is like if I were teaching a class, is how do you keep the customer to where he always puts you as number one? Because a gambler will pay his bookie first and then his bills until he can't pay his bookie. And then you go from number one on his list to dead last. And when you're on dead last, you're in a bad position. So if you can keep it manageable for that particular player where he can pay all his bills and not affect his life and his wife and kids and his job and et cetera, which every bookie would do that. The problem is they're not going to tell you the truth. You don't know how much money they have in the bank or how much they owe in credit cards or if their wife knows about it. These aren't questions you're going to pepper somebody with right away. I mean, that's just personal information that they don't want to tell you. And even if they did, they're going to lie to you anyway. So you have to feel that out as you build a relationship. Like obviously the first sign of struggle of not being able to pay in full right away, you start to question, okay, hey, you owe $1,800. Why can you only send $9? Like it's okay. Just tell me what's going on. Oh, I'm waiting for my check to come in. Okay, well, now they're already gambling over their head, right? So you're not going to extend that guy a crazy amount of credit Because even though, yeah, he might pay you over time and he's honest, you're just bearing that customer. It's better to keep him manageable and let him have fun and still gamble. But they will lie to you, of course. I mean, every gambler does to get that next fix, right?
Would you avoid taking bets from friends?
No, I didn't. I didn't like it. But my theory was, if you're going to gamble with another bookmaker, why not give your money to me and I'll give you a better deal. I'll give you a bigger discount. So it's less awkward as opposed to a transactional. And it's really a true statement. Like, if you're going to lose 10 grand in a week to John Smith and he gives you nothing and I'll give you 30% back and now you're paying me 7, even though it's a awkward transaction between us because we're friends, but it's business. You're going to gamble anyway. So just gamble with me. Give your friend 7K if instead of 10 to John Smith, who you don't like. And if you beat me up for 30 grand and you feel bad about it, don't, because guess what? I have 1,200 other guys gambling with me, and that money's coming probably from someone else anyway. And guess what? You're going to lose in the long run. And this is the exact conversation I'd have with them, and just say it's business. It's okay. You're not going to hurt me by winning.
But doesn't the friendship end if they owe money? Like, that becomes a soft spot.
If they stiff me, yeah. If they are not honorable and completely just tell me to go fuck myself, then yeah, because that's different. But most of my friends who were gambling with me wouldn't do that. They would say, "Hey, Matt, I got over my head. Can we work out a deal?" And I would control them because I know them, right? I know their personal finance. I'm not going to give them some crazy amount of credit. If the guy's runs a mailbox, et cetera, or a postal annex, I know he doesn't make enough to afford 20 grand in a week, so I'm going to keep his credit line at 3,000 or something. And if you ask for that, I'm going to say, Ian, you can't afford this, man. I'm your friend. Like, let's just keep it reasonable. Let's just have a good time and keep it to where you can afford it. And if you get on a heater and you want to bet more because you're up, different conversation. But I'm not looking to hurt your lifestyle or affect your family.
What do you think is a big misconception about bookies?
Easy answer. We take people in the back of the alley with a baseball bat and threaten them and shake them down like Suge Knight hangs a guy over a balcony to pay. That's not even. It's a business. I was a CEO of a multi-million-dollar business that was global, and it was just illegal. I mean, it's no different than CEO of Verizon. I mean, I wasn't as big as Verizon, obviously, I wish, but I was running a very big business, and the logistics behind the business were, fascinating, actually. I look back and I'm like, I can't believe what I was really moving $5 to $7 million every Monday throughout the country and making sure that 700-800 people are paid or paying, and the movement of the money throughout all these different forms of payment is a lot of work, like, truly. And then you're also facilitating errors, and a guy put in a bet wrong, or there's so many like nuances. The agent has his own problem. Maybe he gambled on the site and set up an account for someone else. It was really him. There's so many little things that go on. Then you got to pay the runner. You got to pay the website. You got to make sure all the games that you got to watch the games and make sure that you're not heavy on one side. You got to look for professionals coming through my website. Billy Walters, a famous guy, I'm sure you heard his name, probably the best sports gambler in the history. He operates by getting beards to come bet through bookmakers. And a beard, for someone who doesn't know, is basically someone acting as somebody else, right? And using that name because it's not famous and not going to be picked off. And so he would go out and all these sharp professionals still do this. They go out to people and say, go get accounts and we'll give you a free 10, 20% of all the profits. And they walk up to bookmakers and say, hey, my name's Ian. I want to bet sports. I'll take an account. And you don't even bet sports. You know nothing about it. But you get the account, you give it to them, and they bet professionally, and they win, and you get 10, 20% until the bookmaker figures it out and cuts them off. Like, that's another problem that people don't realize being a bookmaker entails. There's so many like little things, just like any business, right? So I was running a very big business, and I mastered it. I'm not perfect, but I think I did a really good job of growing it to a serious operation, which of course led me to a very bad situation.
What was the most gambled on sport?
Football, for sure. Not even close.
What do you think was the game that you thought it was going to go one way, like a specific game, and you got absolutely wiped on?
There's probably 5,000 of those. I couldn't even give you one because it happens every weekend. I'll give you an example. Last week, the Buffalo Bills played the Baltimore Ravens.
Ooh, yeah.
Did you see that game?
I saw that, yeah.
Obviously, I don't take bets anymore. I don't gamble. I watched it, and the whole world was thinking Baltimore won, right? And then all of a sudden, everything went wrong for Baltimore, and Buffalo pulled it out in the last second. That's what gambling's all about, though. You actually feel like you're part of the team. Like if you're on Buffalo, you feel like you just threw the pass, or especially when you gamble on it. I mean, it's extensively higher. And if you're on Baltimore, that depletion and how you feel like they call it a bad beat, actually, sadly, will drive you to want to bet more because you just got screwed per se, right? But that example is perfect because it happens every week, all the time in basketball, baseball, you name it. You got a guy hits a grand slam with 2 strikes and bases loaded, 2 outs on the 9th, and I mean, I've seen it all. I've seen everything you can imagine, and every bad beat in the world. I mean, Scott Van Pelt has a show on ESPN SportsCenter about, they call it bad beats, and all he plays is how with the spread, how people lose a game in the last second off something that's so drastically almost impossible. A guy like tipping a ball 4 times and falling into some guy in the ground's hand. I mean, that's the stuff that people gamble for, though, because that can happen, right? Anything can happen, and you can get lucky and turn a small amount of money into a large amount. And that's what entices people.
Now, being a high limit roller at these casinos, what do you think is one thing that the casinos don't want people to know about?
Well, they don't want you to take advantage of the comp system to the degree that I was. Definitely, because I squeezed the cow on that better than anyone. They also, don't want you to know about some of the other perks of like the discounts and promo chips and all still part of a comp system, but those are all things that they don't want to offer if they don't have to. And I think high rollers learn that more than anything because they're gambling such a high level. And clearly they want people to think high rollers win. Over time they lose just as much or more than regular players, but they always show you the glamorous lifestyle that we're provided as a high roller, which is amazing. And they do that for a reason, right? I mean, you're on a private jet, you're getting all these things that people dream of, but at what cost?
What do you think of guys like Mickey? What is his name? Mickey Mays or whatever? What do you think of him?
I don't know him. And again, I want to go back to the judging people without knowing or walking in their shoes. I've seen Mickey at Palazzo, actually. He was gambling very high. So some of what he says is true. Keyword, some. So I can tell you that the reason I know that some of it is not true, and he may say the same about me, which is fine. That's why I try to prove the things I do. I mean, federal indictment says that I took $326 million in wagers from one customer. So my website shows factual data. He says things that are impossible that he was doing at a casino. And when I say impossible, they won't allow it. So if I went out here in this particular setting with you and said, oh, I bet $1 million on a hand of blackjack, everyone in the country would know that is complete bullshit. Because you cannot bet $1 million at a hand of blackjack. I don't care who you are, how much money you bring, they won't allow it. They won't take it. You can bring 20 million, they won't do it. The amount you bet on a hand is based on how much money you bring as a bankroll. So I don't know Mickey, and I'm not calling him a liar. I'm just saying that some of it seems a little bit exaggerated.
Will they ban someone for winning too much?
Oh, definitely. Okay. Yeah, I've been banned. I'm banned at every casino, but not for winning.
And what do you get, like a letter? Or?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you get a nice, or you get a tap on the shoulder. I've gotten that too for counting cards and blackjack. Then I've been told that you can play carnival games, they call it, which is a nice way of saying only the games that we can beat you at, but you can no longer play blackjack.
What do you think is the best game to play at the casino?
If you can count cards, it's blackjack, but you'll get picked off fast. Other than that, it's probably Baccarat, secondly, because the odds are a little bit better in your favor. But over time, if you play dice perfectly, it's probably right there with it. But the reality is you can't win over time.
Baccarat is what I played, but I was going to Empire City Casino in New York, where it's all electronic tables because I wasn't old enough to go to Mohegan Sun.
Okay.
That's why I got my bond revoked, because I was going across state lines playing there. But I would turn like $500 into like 20 grand, 30 grand. But it was all luck.
Of
because
course.
it's a digital machine.
Uh-huh.
I would just ride the streaks. So
Yeah,
if
that's
it's
what I
going
played.
all player, and
Me too.
Baccarat, you just boom, 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 and you hit it because
Yep.
everyone's betting against the streak.
Of course they are.
And then I would win.
You'd
But
ride it.
when I add up all of my losses, it like every time I went there in desperate times, like I needed to pay an artist, I needed to pay an expense, and I'd go there with like $2,000 and like this is my last $2,000, and I'd get to 10 grand, but it's like you're so much debt. How do you walk away at 10 when you're doing well?
Yeah.
So I would always lose it. If I added up in those like last year of really playing with money, how many times I lost like that $2,000 or
Correct.
grand or $3,000, I would have been better off not going, and I would have had the money I needed to
cover
pay
the
off
problems.
that thing. Exactly.
Well, what you just said is the exact epitome of why gambling pulls everyone in, though, because you were going there for the wrong reason, knowing that you needed a large amount of money, and you knew that that's the only opportunity that you saw at that moment to make that quick, easy dollar, 2,000 into 30. But you also said exactly what happens over time. You end up losing more than you even when you win, and you do remember those scores you had. I call it a score, the score that you had where you turned 2 into whatever 10 or 12, and that's what sucks you back in because you know it's possible. I went to Foxwoods many times. I had a $2 million credit line there, and they flew me in a helicopter, a Sikorsky to the Red Sox game where David Ortiz retired. Even though it was an old casino, it's the largest in the world actually. They gave me a great deal because they're in the middle of nowhere, as you know, and because they're competing against Vegas, Atlantic City, now these new casinos in the East Coast. They offer a lot better deals for high rollers. So I would go there for that reason.
So now you build up this successful business. It's running for many years, obviously. How does it come crashing down?
October 5th, I was walking out with my son, putting him in my wife's car, and I heard FBI freeze. I looked over to my left, and I had AR rifles pointed at me with about 8 or 9 agents. And then once they secured the premise and secured the house with the dog and the 29 agents and brought my wife out handcuffed crying and that whole scenario, that's the moment that everything crashed. How did we get there? Clearly someone tipped them off, but again, back to what I said earlier, it's really related to the casinos. That's where the investigation started. There was a bookmaker in 2020 that got busted, and he had a relationship with the CEO of Resorts World. And then, so it all, as you know, you've been through this, they go through your electronic devices and they just follow the money, follow the conversations, follow everything. And it leads to more investigations, which led eventually to me 3 years later.
Why do people relate the Ohtani scandal to your downfall? Because I've seen some things related to that.
That's completely false. I understand why, because he's the biggest baseball player to ever walk on biggest athlete to ever walk on the planet, in my opinion. And it came out because of my case. Obviously, once again, rating me and having me in this federal indictment is going to bring out everything that's in your phones, et cetera. And so the minute that happened, which I got rated in October, the story broke in March. But it wasn't because of that. They didn't even know. The federal agents had no idea that Ipe Mizahara, Shohei Ohtani's interpreter, was gambling with me.
And stealing money from
Correct.
Ohtani.
Correct. And I didn't even know until March.
So
Truly.
if you never got busted, do you think he would ever realize he was getting money stolen from?
I don't truly. Well, let me take that back. I think he probably eventually would have realized, but I don't think it would have been what happened. I think that my honest opinion is they would have resolved it between the two of them. I don't think he would be in prison. And I think they maybe would end their friendship or maybe work it out. I don't know. Shohei Ohtani seems to be one of the nicest people just based on what I've seen on TV, and I've been around him but never spoke to him. He's such a kind individual from what I see. He might have just chalked up as a loss and said, I'm firing you as an interpreter, or maybe worked it out with him because maybe he understands gambling addiction and why he took the money. Because I don't believe the money was taken as a, malice. I mean, truly, I believe that he was feeding this addiction. I know it firsthand. I was talking to him for almost 2 years, and he never showed any signs of distray. It was more like, in fact, he jokes about it. If you look at the text messaging that the feds put out, oh my God, I'm so bad at this. Hey, give me another 500,000. oh God, I can never win. Give me another 500,000. And as a gambler, I've said it many times. I suck at this, but let me bet again, right? It wasn't like, oh my God, I want to kill myself. Oh my God, I've ruined my life. None of that was ever said, because then I would have handled it differently. Did I ever ask, who was behind it? No, because anonymity is something I provide. And then also, when someone's sending you $500,000 every 2 weeks, you don't really ask too many questions. You just say thanks.
Did you know it was his interpreter at the time when you were taking the bets?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I met the interpreter. That's how the relationship started. I had no idea with Shohei Ohtani, the money, until the third wire transfer. Didn't even notice.
Because it came directly from his account?
All of them did.
Now, how much money did he actually lose? Because you said he still owes you money to this day, so that's some of the imaginary credit that was given to him?
Correct.
Or given that you gave to him?
Right.
So how much actually was stolen from Ohtani's account?
The rumor is, well, not rumor, the facts are he took $17 million. I received $16.2. I don't know the other money. I think he bought some, memorabilia and maybe did some dental work and stuff like that. So, he used some of it for other stuff. But 16.2 is what I received. And then he lost 40.2 total. So 24 million, which is, of course, never going to be paid or seen.
What did you end up getting charged with after they raided you?
I got charged with 10 years for money laundering, 5 years for falsified tax return, and 3 years for illegal bookmaking.
And this is in what year? You said October, but what
October 23.
23, yeah. So almost 2 years ago.
Yep.
Was your plan to plead guilty right away? What did that look like?
No question. I told my attorney right when she came over, I said, there's zero fight here. I mean, I got no case. There's zero chance of me winning this, nor do I even want to try. And you know this. I mean, that helps you, right? That you save them money from going after you. You plead guilty right away. You are definitely lowering your charges. And I was doing anything I could to minimize the government spending money to go after somebody that they were going to find guilty anyway. So I told her, I said, I'll plead guilty, but I'm not talking to them. And, at this point I said I would definitely help them in regards to anything with the casino, because they allowed the laundering, and that's why they were there, which helped me, receive a lighter sentence, which a year in prison, in a federal prison camp is not something I'm excited about. Let's be real. But I was looking at 3 to 4 years. So I'm very happy with the outcome.
What did your wife think when you got arrested?
She, I've been with her 10 years, and she's never been through this before. I was raided in 2014, right before I met her. And so I always explained to her what could occur, but it doesn't matter. I mean, you know this. You could tell somebody, but unless you're going through it, you can't really tell somebody. You can't describe it, because I think I read a story about yours. You're upstairs in your underwear in your mom's house or something, right? Like, until you have seen federal agents with weapons and scouring your house, and it just feels like 100 times bigger than it really is. And I described it to her, but going through it is just 10 times different and worse than it really is.
What was it like getting all that press on you when that happened? That
made it harder because for 3 months I had Japanese reporters, I had regular reporters, I had guys flying from Japan. They were showing up at my jiu-jitsu studio. They even showed up at my professor, who's my partner in my studio. He's the black belt that trains everyone. They showed up at his house in San Clemente, California. I mean, that's a violation of rights, but they didn't care. I would walk my dog. Me and my wife would go for a walk, and we'd have cameras just in our face. And you can't, as much as you want to just push them out, you got to be very careful of that. Now you have lawsuits. So, and I couldn't talk then. I chose not to, which we spoke about earlier, right? And that was frustrating for me, because I was seeing all the media reports and making me look so bad, and I wanted to at least defend myself to a degree. I've always defended myself my whole life. And I felt like the attack was just, didn't give me an opportunity to at least speak my mind or explain myself, really. And my explanation isn't like, hey, I'm not guilty. It was, hey, I'm guilty. I made some poor choices, but there's a little bit more behind the scenes than, oh, this guy, didn't pay his taxes, or this guy was laundering millions of dollars and preying on people for gambling. From the outside perspective, that's what they showed.
Did they seize anything from you when you got arrested?
Yeah, they seized $270,000 in cash, a lot of casino chips with pretty good value. They took about $300,000 worth of handbags. My wife I bought her a lot of nice handbags. All of our jewelry, not all, but most of our jewelry, whatever we were wearing, they didn't take, of course. Some really nice watches and stuff like that. And then they took a gold bar. I had a couple gold bars. And then that was really it. They, of course, all the electronic devices, bunch of computers and hard drives, that kind of stuff.
What about assets like your house? Because weren't those all things built from the business over the years?
You know, I've had a lot of legal business in my life. So I was a commodity trader for 11 years. I made a lot of money, millions of dollars, paid a lot of taxes. I own a jiu-jitsu studio. I work for car dealerships. I do marketing for them. I have for 8 years. So I've had a lot of legitimate income. And even my properties I've sold and made money doing that as well. So no, the answer, and plus I paid my restitution. I paid everything. So there's nothing for them to really come after. I mean, less than 1% of people that go to court in a federal case pay their restitution before they even see the judge.
How much was your restitution and what was that from?
1.6 and change, a little over 1.6 million. It was tax, penalty charges, and I believe interest as well for whatever so it was like 1.6 and change. But I think the charge, I'm still got charged a $1.2 million fine that I still owe to this day. That's separate from that. And then, of course, I'm paying tons of penalties and interest on, I had to file a 2023 proper return. And that return, as I told you earlier, I had to file on money I never received because I didn't want to commit another crime. So I had to hire all these different CPA firms that were audited 4 different ways. My tax attorney's done a great job, Jonathan Almatrano, going through and making sure that we filed a perfect return because I didn't even know what I made. I mean, I didn't keep a ledger. So we were asking the IRS, like, can you tell us what you want him to file? How much money did he make in 23? And they wouldn't give us that answer. So we had to dig and archive everything, and it was a lot of work. But the point is, on that money, I owe, I think it's total between state and federal, and the penalties and the $1.2 million fine, it's like $10 million. And they're charging me roughly, well, it was a little under $60,000 a month in interest right now, which is accumulating every month and more. So as you can imagine, when I come out of prison, I'm going to have a large thing to overcome. And you know this because you're finally almost through yours, right? So I paid restitution, but now I got to go to make, in my mind, I got to make 20 million to make 10 just to cover that. And then I still got to take care of 5 kids. I still got to try to keep my house. I still can't get a state license. There's a lot of things I'm overcoming, which is why I wrote my book, Recalibrate, because I'm documenting all of it. Like everything I'm going through and all the adversities that I'm overcoming is all mindset. People think I'm crazy when I say I'm going to make more money in the next 10 years than I made in the first 50 of my life. And I have no doubt about it.
What happened to the business? When you got raided, did people get paid? Did they get all settled out?
Everyone got paid.
And then it just closed down?
Well, they scattered like fleas to, I say fleas, the ones who owed me money, of course, didn't call me to pay me. But they all just went to other bookmakers. They're still, I would say 99% of them are gambling with another bookie as we speak.
So the people that owed didn't pay and the people that were owed got paid? Of
course.
And then everything just got shut down?
Yeah.
What about employees? Did you have any on the payroll?
I had a runner, and he's obviously Ubering now, just trying to make ends meet. And then all the agents I had that were not really, I guess they're technically, you can call them employees, but I believe that some of them shut it down and just got out of the business, got scared. Some of them probably went to other bookmakers, and I don't really know because I avoid those conversations because my phone's monitored and I don't want somebody else to get in trouble, and it's really none of my business. And I just focused on me. I didn't want anyone in my business to get in trouble, and nobody has. Not one agent, not one person, not one runner got in trouble or has had problems because of me.
Tell us about sentencing day, which just happened a couple weeks ago.
That was you've been through this, man. I've never been that nervous. I really am pretty calm as a cucumber under pressure. I've never been that nervous in my life. There was probably 40 camera crews there. Every ESPN, NBC, CNN, ABC, KTLA, you name it. They were all there and more. Japanese reporters. I was on Japanese TV 3 days ago. They sent me the footage, which is really funny. Couldn't understand what they were saying, but my pictures were all over it. My book was even on it. Anyway, it just getting out of, I rented a van like a big Sprinter van, because I brought my entire family, and I wanted the world and the media to see, and the judge really and the prosecution to see that we're a team and I'm a good person. And even though I've made some really bad choices, I have a community of people behind me. And there was literally over 200 people there on my behalf. We had to open multiple courtrooms. They had to watch it on the TV. My attorney did a great job of standing up and having everyone raise their hand that's not media. There was so much media there. So the judge could see like how many people were, all my children were there. My ex-wife, her husband was crying in the courtroom. I mean, the support I had was truly amazing. And but the nervousness and the tension I had of going to sentencing with my fate on the line of how long I'll be in federal prison was nerve-wracking. Not so much because I'm scared to go to prison. I'm a grown man. I can handle myself. If I don't want to, I'm very fortunate. I'm going to a federal camp. It's not like I'm going to some maximum state prison where I would be literally shitting my pants. I'm not going to lie, because I'll be honest. I don't think I'd ever come out, because I'm a person that is going to defend myself, and definitely I have to really check my ego, especially even going to a camp, which is a conversation we should probably have, but because you've been there. But I will always command respect, truly. And when you go to prison, it's all about respect. And a state prison, I mean, you got to pick a race, and there's a lot more chaos, right? A lot more going on, politics. Whereas a federal camp, and again, I'm speaking as if I've been there, but I've asked a lot of questions, and you've been there, so you can answer some of these. But knowing that I'm facing 3 to 4 years, and I might be, the hardest part for me was, how do I be a father and provide and protect for my family? And how do I put my wife and my mom, who's 75 years old, through this, right? Because they're the ones who suffer more than I do, So that part was really hard. It's still the hardest part out of all of this by far. My wife was crying in my arms last night for like 30 minutes. And it's because she's realizing I'm 29 days away from leaving her. And she's going to have to run a household with a little guy and a 14-year-old and 2 dogs and, bills and problems. And I'm not there. And I've always been that source of strength, But in that van ride to the sentencing, my entire family's in the van and my attorney. And by the way, it's all being filmed because I'm shooting a documentary. But I don't care. I just put the truth out. Want the world to see it. I just told them all. I said, listen, I made a mistake. We're here because of my poor choices. I apologize that I'm putting you guys through this, but I can't thank you enough for having my back and coming into court and showing the support. And I want the media to see that we are a strong bond and frankly respect that, because you can put your head down or you could be a man and hold your head high. And I wanted my children to see, really my message in that book is, adversity either knocks you on your ass and you get up, or you get down and you resort to alcohol, drugs, or excuses. And I'm never going to be that guy. I don't care if I'm 20 years in prison. It's not going to change my mindset.
What scares you the most about going to prison?
Just not being home and protecting my kids and my wife, like truly, like, and putting them through that. But if I had to like separate that, just the uncomfortableness of the unknown of what I'm walking into. I'm not a big fan of sleeping with dudes in bunks and being, listen, I've been spoon fed I'm just being real. The last 20 years of my life, I've had white glove service. I've really been babied, and I've earned that legally and illegally, but I've earned that. And now that's being stripped from me, and I deserve that. That's fine. But not, going back to kind of, no white glove service is going to be, that sounds ridiculous, but I'm being honest. It's going to be hard. I'm used to air conditioning, getting up and going, get whatever I want. I don't want to be told, stand up for count, or you can't walk the track, or, there's a fight and now everyone's, all your visitors got to go home. Like just the lack of control, because I'm a control person. I've always had my own control, is going to be difficult. And then also the disrespect of, somebody disrespecting me and biting my tongue and not slapping them right across the fucking face is going to be hard, because I'm not going to add time because of some idiot running his mouth or whatever the case is, because you know this better than me, but I've been told the camps are pretty low key and some of the guys are cool and you end up building some good relationships. I look forward to that. But there's also some child molesters and people that I have zero respect for, that I would love to just grab them around the neck and choke the fuck out of them, just being honest, because I have children and I think that's disgusting. But I'll have to bite my tongue and stay away from that,
What are you doing to prepare for prison? Are you like watching TV shows, movies, documentaries, podcasts, talking to people, hiring like a prison consultant?
I mean, I did hire Justin Paperny from White Collar Advice, and you've had him on your show. Great guy, good friend of mine. Michael Santos, I work for his nonprofit, prisonprofessors.org. He did a 26-year sentence. Do you know who that is?
Yeah, I've heard of him, yeah.
He's amazing. So 45 years in prison, sentence, he did 26 at every capacity, max, low, medium, camp, you name it. So I've gotten a lot of great advice, even, you'll tell me your experience. But I believe every experience is different regardless, because you're in a different prison, different setting, different people, different guards, different time. I think I'm pretty fortunate. The time I'm going to prison, it's not 85% max, mandatory fed anymore. It's not, from my understanding, Lompoc prison is pretty low-key camp. There's not too much drama and politics. Of course, there's still some rules, right? Sitting with blacks or Mexicans and whites, maybe for eating lunch or whatever, dinner. I know the food sucks. I know that. I'm another thing I'll be a baby about, but I'll suck it up and handle it. But those are the fears that I have, which are simple fears. I just don't want to get more time. I have to really check my ego. Like if there's a situation that arises, and I'm also a loyal guy. Like if something happens and shit pops off or whatever, if this is my bunkie, let's call it, or my friend that I've met there and he has a problem, I mean, I'll be the guy that wants to back him, but I can't, I got to stay away from those situations, So, a lot of people just say, go in there and keep your head down and stay to yourself and just walk the track, write, read books. But I'm a personable guy, so I can't help but make the best of situations and get to know people. And, and I've been told that I'll be somewhat of a celebrity in there because of my case being so high profile. And they, this, I guess they like gambling quite a bit in there. And
sports betting's huge.
Yeah. So
do you still gamble?
No, I can't. If I gamble, I'll add my charges. I miss it though. And I'm honest about it. I go to Gamblers Anonymous. I do mental health therapy that's required by the court. And I'm honest with my therapist. I'm like, yeah, freaking game's on tonight. I want to watch. I want to bet on it, But that's something I'll fight the rest of my life.
Do you think that you'll try to get into sports gambling in prison? Like, I know you're not allowed to, but do you think once you're in that environment, like to me, it's like when you see that prison cell phone, guys are going to have cell phones in there. Your short time, you want to stay far away from one of those prison cell phones. On a year and a day, you'll probably do 6-7 months with the halfway house.
Right.
One of those cell phones can get rid of that entirely.
Right.
But once you're in there, in the belly of the beast like that, it's very addicting, especially when you go from a high rolling lifestyle to that.
Right. The cell phone, I've been fair warned many, many times. And I've heard that there's so many of them, right? And they have lookouts. And, I've heard that you would know this, that they have guys that will set you up and give you a phone and say they're looking out for you and put money in the commissary and this and that, but they'll snitch on you anyway. So I've had some good advice because that's good to know. Because, the moment of temptation, I'm wanting to call my wife or my kid or one of my daughters is going to be tough.
Or even working on your brand, because that's a focus now. I know
that too. You're right.
If I could do it all over again, I'd stay off the cell phones.
Well, thank you for saying that.
It's just not worth it.
I'm definitely going to. I mean, you had a longer sentence than me. So I think if I had a 3-year sentence, it would be more of a struggle, knowing that I'm going to be there for 3 full years, which might be, a year and a half or whatever. But the fact that I'm looking at maybe 6 months, I mean, you could stomach anything for 6 months. I mean, I'm not in like you said, a max or a state prison. I mean, you just got to tough it out. I committed a crime. I lived a life of luxury. And when I was on a private jet, enjoying the caviar and lobster, I mean, you got to take the good with the bad.
Yeah, I think you just focus on yourself, work out, find something maybe get a new hobby or read or work on that, another book, or you just find something you kind of put your all into.
Sure.
I think staying away from social media, especially when it's there and accessible is definitely hard, but visiting your family and having visits with your family and phone calls and using like the computer and tablets that they have available is definitely the way to go when you're on time like this, and you'll meet people that you could bond with and who you could trust.
Yeah. I look forward to there's one part of prison I look forward to is the lack of chaos of what I'm, how busy. Like you're on your phone a lot too. I see I'm always on my phone. I always have been for the last 30 years, and I'm always go go go. I'm being a dad. I'm being a husband. I'm running businesses. I'm trying everything. So the fact that I kind of get to shut it all down and just focus on myself and reflecting is going to be kind of good. That part.
Yeah, that was the best part about the Mr. Beast thing, that I had no phone for 3 months.
Yeah.
And then when I got out, I was like, boom, I catch it up with everything. But it was refreshing to have.
I'm sure.
How do you feel about being apart from your wife? Do you think she'll be able to go the distance? I know now you guys are planning on it, but when you have that separation, things change. I've seen guys that they break up after 2 weeks, or guys that the wife stays for 6 or 7 years.
Sure.
How do you feel about that?
I have no doubt. My wife is so loyal. Her father did time when she was young. I think 5.5 years. So she's been through this. Of course, she was a baby, so she hasn't been through this technically. But and that's, I'm not saying that's helpful, but she just has the stomach of a champion and the loyalty of true, like, of any woman. She's a unicorn. She's not. I mean, she's such a aesthetically beautiful woman. But I'm not joking. The inside of this woman is unmatched. So, I mean, I have zero doubt that we'll get through it. Do I worry about some of the obvious things? I mean, 6 months when you haven't seen somebody, when you see somebody every single day, all day long, it's going to be a little different. I'm going to be different. Like, I bet you when you came out of prison, you were a little bit different. Like, in some way, anyone who goes to prison, I don't care if it's a camp or a state or whatever it is, I just believe you have to be different coming out. It could be better. I'm not saying you're better, worse off, and I'll make sure I'm better. I'll be a better version of myself. I'll be a stronger minded individual even more. That's my goal, and I'm going to prove that to her. But it's hard. Yeah, for sure.
Are your kids old enough to understand what's going on?
Yeah, I have a 30-year-old daughter, 26, 22, 14, and a 4-year-old son. So all my girls understand it. Of course, my 4-year-old son has no clue. We're going to play it like I'm on vacation or work and see how that goes. Once my wife comes to see me, we'll kind of feel that out if it's even worth bringing him to visit, because he's smart enough at this age where he will understand that I'm definitely not on vacation or at work if he comes to see me. We'll play that as we go. My 14-year-old daughter is the one that's really having the hardest time with it. She's hormonal. She's in high school, and I'm close with her. My adult kids, it's hard on them, but they understand it, and everyone's known what I've done the entire time. It's not like I've hid it.
Do you look at the criminal justice system differently after going through it yourself?
Yeah, big time. I think it's sadly mismanaged drastically. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have some of the system in place that we have. It just needs to be changed drastically. I mean, I don't know you very well, but I just don't think that you being in federal prison or me being in federal prison really benefits society or you and your lifestyle or your family. Should we be punished for crimes? Of course, absolutely. But I believe if I was never put in prison and I was actually punished even more financially to pay back the government and work harder to do that, I think that would be a much better punishment. And I would choose that, of course, because it's not helping a 4-year-old boy being raised without his father, a 14-year-old girl, my wife. I mean, put me to work. I'll pay you back faster.
Yeah, I think house arrest is on the ankle monitor is a bigger punishment and being forced to go to work than sitting at a camp.
Me too.
Camps are the biggest waste. They actually closed the one I was at, but they're just such a waste of money, of resources, of time, because it's just so lax there, And everyone knows there's cell phones and stuff at camp, so you're going to be sitting at home watching Netflix anyways. You might as well be working.
Sure.
Doing that, I know, it takes away from having those intimate relationships with your spouse and whatnot. But people find a way to do that anyways in there. So
yeah,
it really is pointless. I joke around it with my dad all the time now. I think if the government could go back in time and give me house arrest instead of me going to prison, they probably would have taken that, knowing the outcome of how I use my prison sentence to build everything I have now.
Which is you should be proud of yourself to come out and do the right thing and do something legal and use your story and your opportunity to educate people to see what really goes on all aspects. I know you've had law enforcement, FBI agents, DEA, deep dark criminals, all kinds of things, but I think it's great. I mean, you are giving the viewers an opportunity to see all different platforms and sides of the story, and these stories need to be told because people can learn from them. And I hope that whoever watches this will be inspired by me in a positive light. You know, I've made some poor choices again by, you know, doing something illegal, and, you know, I had an addiction as well, and hopefully they'll learn to overcome that, you know, get help for any addictions that they have. And maybe, you know, instead of if maybe they're still doing something illegal, maybe they'll stop doing it. And, you know, I had that opportunity. I chose not to because I wanted the quick buck and the easy lifestyle. But in hindsight, I wish I would have, why not be a CEO of a major corporation that's legal? I could have made more money. I wouldn't have been looking over my shoulder. Yeah, I would have paid a lot more in taxes, but who cares? You just make more. You know, I've always been able to make more, so I really have no excuse for what I did. That being said, I'm going to use the same platform you did, and maybe in a different manner, but I plan on doing tons of public speaking, motivating people. I've ran sales forces. I've done all kinds of things in my life, which are all in the book. And the book is just one little tiny step of many steps I'm going to take. And I believe, you know, the Wolf of Wall Street movie is exactly what's going to happen in my life. My goal is to have a movie similar to that. You know, you take Wolf of Wall Street, Casino, and Pursuit of Happiness, and you combine them all into one. I believe that'll be a very telling story of kind of my life.
That'll be an exciting movie.
I think it'll be really good. I mean, the documentary that we're working on now is very exciting. I'm you know, that's great, but my goal is to get to a movie and show people, you know, the ups and downs, the wild rides, the good, bad, ugly. And I really do want to inspire people and make them change and for the better.
How would you describe your character now?
Now, I mean, listen, I was always in the world of, for me to win, I call it win or make money, I needed somebody on the other side to lose. You know, I needed to lose their bets. Or if I was a commodity trader, I needed to make more commissions and convince them to do more trades, which I knew the end result was probably a loss. Now it's win-win. And that's powerful. When you believe in everything you do and you know you're building a better character amongst yourself, there's nothing more powerful than that. I mean, the one thing I tell people is probably the most important question you could ask yourself is, how do you define success in your life? And for me, I'm finally defining it by, even though I don't make any money in what I'm doing here today, I know success is coming financially, but I'm defining it every day. I'm becoming a better human, a better father, a better person, a better husband, a better, you know, social, you know, even just helping people, like truly giving back. It's been inspiring. And I know that I will get paid a lot of money for that down the road. And so if you're going to pay me to do something I love and everybody wins, life is great.
Matt, I appreciate you coming on the show today, man.
Of course, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad we can make this happen.
I appreciate it.
You know, thanks again to Hubble Studios and Rod for connecting us.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time, man.
Yeah, awesome.
Appreciate it.